Get jazzed, because this is going to be a semester filled with active learning. Active learning, you ask? Why is that so important? Well, let me tell you a little bit about active learning. We know that compared to sitting passively in a lecture hall, active learning increases your motivation, it increases your likelihood to stay in school, to sustain in your career, and your likelihood that you'll be successful in doing so. It increases the amount of people who will continue to sustain and succeed, and it makes it so that your scientific thinking skills, your writing skills, and your lifelong learning all go up. In fact, it's been stated, and I think I agree, that it's totally unethical to teach in any other way. Now, if you're not buying it still, then you might be pretty interested to think about the neural networks that are created when we learn. When we learn, there are neurons that fire in different locations. In order to connect those disparate firings, we have to have a connecting hippocampus. And that enables us to make connections, to store for a moment on our desktop, and then finally to move it to the hard drive. Now, as it turns out, we actually can create far more connectors when we're learning actively and in a multimodal way, meaning we're learning in more than one way. We're using our hands, we're drawing, we're talking and speaking and working together. And that's where I want to take our discussion now, because the number one assignment for sustaining your active learning is the current events poster assignment. This allows you to go through real problem solving. In fact, to solve some of the world's most critical and important problems. It allows you to work as a team, to develop your leadership skills. It allows you to engage in meaningful dialogue and gain the communication skills that we know are essential for employers to want to hire you. So let's talk a little bit more about this awesome assignment. You're going to get together with groups of about 5 to 8. We're going to do that in lab. And in fact, I want to go through with you the due dates on this assignment. You're, of course, seeing this in your syllabus, and you'll notice that in the bottom reaches of this description, there will be a list of due dates that you're going to want to review. So the very first thing to take note of is that during lab, on the very first week of lab, Tuesday, September the 5th, we'll select group members. Now that's pretty easy. All you have to do is show up to lab, and we're going to go through some really awesome activities to make sure that we create the most diverse group, the most productive group possible. Now, between Monday, September the 11th and Monday, September the 18th, on YO courses, you're going to create your own group thread. I'm going to give you really clear instructions on YO courses for how to do that. But at that time, you need to make sure that everybody in your group is added to that YO courses shell. Now you're going to give your group a group name. And there have been some super creative ones. I've really liked Gang Green, and notice the MRSA, MRSA, like methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus, mercenaries, and the microbials. They did their poster on colony collapse disorder, perhaps one of the most pivotal problems that faces us at this time. Now, these due dates are going to keep coming at you. And although you might think, wow, this is probably a big culminating assignment for the semester, and that's true, literally all of your work for this assignment will be done very early in the semester. Notice that between Friday, September the 29th and Monday, October the 9th, you're going to be submitting your hypothesis. I consider this to be the most important part of your entire process, because once you have a hypothesis, your job is simply limited and narrowed to such an extent that it seems a little bit more doable. So before we review different types of hypotheses and how to go about writing a hypothesis, I bet you're kind of thinking, wow, that's a big window of due dates. Yeah, it is. So your group might be kind of one of those proactive groups, one that gets things done very quickly and wants to submit on that very beginning date, September the 29th. You know who you are. Or your group may in fact be procrastinators, or maybe we'll say perfectionists. You just want to make sure everything is right and you're waiting to submit until October 9th. Either way is fine, but don't forget to back plan. Make sure that your group is leaving time for the things that are important to you to get done, and that you're using that window of submission possibilities to its most sensible ends. Let's take a look now at what you're going to do to write a good hypothesis. So if you scan through this assignment description, you see that I make sure that you understand how to go about each component of this assignment. Let's talk about hypotheses and the major elements of a hypothesis that are essential in order to state something that is not necessarily right. Hang on. Not necessarily right. That is, a hypothesis doesn't need to be correct in order to be a good hypothesis. It just has to be testable, and it has to have clear outcomes, and it needs to be grounded in background information. Let's read through one of these examples, and you'll notice that there are two types of hypotheses that I have put forward. These consist of an observational predictive hypothesis or a manipulated hypothesis. There are other ways you can write a good hypothesis. These are just a couple of examples that I'm giving. Let's talk about this prior student example. This was done by a student group in 2015. The strain of triple-negative breast cancer does not have the three most common types of receptors seen in most breast cancers. These are the estrogen, progesterone, and HER2 new gene product receptor. As a result, the triple-negative breast cancer tests negative for all three growth factor receptors found in all other strains of breast cancer. This has made targeting drug cell treatments highly ineffective in curing this strain of cancer. Currently, the developing technology is genetically modified viruses has become promising in the treatment of this strain of cancer. Whoa, didn't we just see something really cool there? This group just showed us they know their stuff. They have really done their work in researching the background on their topic. And not only that, but they've shown us how two tendrils come together. That is, their interest in triple-negative breast cancer and their interest in gene therapy using viruses. So this notion that you can maybe target this particular cancerous cell with a virus vector, so vaccinia virus belonging to the pox virus family, that can be engineered to express the a missing receptor within the cancer cell. So this makes it possible to then treat it. Now let's look at the hypothesis itself. Thus, we hypothesized that by February 2015, a human clinical trial using the vaccinia virus to fight the triple-negative breast cancer strain will be conducted. Okay, the other important elements of a hypothesis are now seen. Notice that they have clear outcomes. We know that they're predicting that particularly in February 2015, what will happen? Well, there'll be a human clinical trial. And what will it use? Well, it'll use the vaccinia virus and it'll use it to treat triple-negative breast cancer. So we're clear on the outcomes. That's testable, right? Because we can know after February 2015 whether this has been supported or whether it's been disproved. Now, a hypothesis can be disproved, but it can't be proven. That's something important to note. We can support it, though. Now, you might think, well, I wonder when I write my hypothesis and I should say when we write our hypothesis and we submit it to Rachel, how does she assess it? Well, I assess it on all those things, and you'll notice that the assessment rubric that will be used is included right here in the assignment description. I like to make sure you know how I'm going to assess you and how I will evaluate your work. So notice all of these things we've talked about. The hypothesis is phrased as a predictive or a pseudo-manipulated hypothesis. It's narrow enough in scope. That is, I think you can accomplish it during the semester. Preliminary investigation, we certainly saw that in the one that we just reviewed. It was possible to test it. It could be accepted, rejected, modified, disproved. And then changes or outcomes were specified, right? We knew exactly what they were predicting would occur. So all of these categories, if marked satisfactory, will enable you to earn all of the points that are available for your hypothesis. So you'll notice that I've pointed this out, 10 points for the hypothesis, and that's a very easy and early way to gain those points. So that being said, there is more to this story, because once we have decided that your hypothesis is right on the mark and you're ready to go, that means you now have to dive into the literature and really get going on creating your poster. Now, there are a lot of really cool examples of prior posters. In your syllabus, remember there were a couple that we looked at within the syllabus, from grass to gas, using the bacterial Fibrobacter succinigenes to develop the most cost-efficient biofuels. The bleak future of coral reefs due to global warming related diseases. Notice these are big issues. These are trendy and very important things that we need to think about as a society in order to progress forward to consider those most eminent and potentially bleak problems that our world faces. So once you have done a great job of making your hypothesis, notice that can go smack dab onto your poster. You can begin to design it. Hopefully, you're making really good use of your space, using the golden rectangle to display visuals here in the center, and having good contrast within your poster so that people want to read it. Let me show you another one that makes good use of this space. And you can see here, men can prevent human papillomavirus related diseases in sexual partners. Notice they have a region here where they've stated their hypothesis, but also once you stated your hypothesis, it's very easy to write your introduction. In fact, in a lot of cases, in order to get yourself funneled down to the hypothesis, you've already written an introduction. An introduction essentially takes you from a big perspective, why this topic is important to absolutely everyone, top of the funnel, and it funnels you down, coming all the way down to the specific focus that you're taking on the project, and then leading directly to the hypothesis. By the time your reader reads the hypothesis, she or he should say, yeah, of course that's what the hypothesis would be based on what I've already read in the introduction. You'll notice that the assignment description goes through the introduction specifically and tells you the kinds of things to include in there. So very shortly after submitting your hypothesis on the given due date, you will be very ready to get your poster going. I suggest you bring it to lab with you. You ask for feedback from your peers, and you look towards them to help you to get that poster well on its way at the midpoint of the semester. Now, you'll notice that the next thing that is due is actually the abstract. An abstract is like the movie trailer to the final poster. So just like a movie trailer, you want the abstract not to completely give away your entire project, but to tell just enough to get you super jazzed, right? You know you want to see the movie. So that being said, it also means that your poster needs to basically be finished prior to November 15th, sometime between November 15th and November the 29th, in order to write a very complete but drafty form of your abstract. So that due date basically is a due date for completion of both the poster and the abstract. Now, it doesn't mean that your poster has to be firmly, beautifully finished, but it has to be enough finished that you can write the movie trailer. And here I give the specifics for writing a good abstract. There's some variation that can take place in there, but this is one way to really do a good job of telling your reader about the story that you're going to tell on the day of the poster presentation, which, by the way, that day is on our regularly scheduled final exam. So make sure to note that, put it in your cell phone, make an alarm go off so that you know about each and every one of these due dates, in fact. Now, this assignment description goes all the way through all of the sections in your poster. So as you are designing each section of your poster, make sure to come and read each one of these descriptions to help you along. Remembering the introduction description is here. The research methods is here. And I want to comment briefly on that research methods section. For the most part, you will not be doing original research. That is to say, you won't be getting down and dirty in the lab and proposing experimental tests for hypotheses that you'll do in the lab. There are some exceptions. We've had a couple of folks, student groups, who have gotten very organized very early. And for example, they've tested the impacts of caffeine on probiotic growth. However, most groups are doing literature searches, and they're doing very meaningful work that way. And the methods that you're relating in your research method sections are essentially how you accessed the journal literature and public perspective literature that you utilized to follow the processes within your field or within your topic. So I want to take you for a moment to some of the most important literature sites for doing this research. And number one is our own UW Library's website. Once you get to the UW Library's website, you're going to want to go to the databases. It looks like a stack of orange tires, and click on that. And once you've found your way to the databases, the Web of Science is going to be particularly useful. So click on the Web of Science, and then you can begin to search for your topic. So it could be that you've become really very interested in the way in which the human microbiome is related to disease. So maybe the gut microbiome, we know there's actually a causation between microbiota and obesity, and that actually might be the topic that you're looking for. So microbiome or microbiota and obesity, I have a feeling you're going to notice that a lot of topics pop up. There will probably be many that are very, very recent. So for example, this one was published in August 3rd of 2017, so only a couple of weeks ago. And then from there on down, you can see many August 2017 publications. It might be that you then narrow your approach, because maybe you're going to look specifically at a type of Firmicutes, which is one of the organisms, the ratio of which is associated with obesity. So you may then narrow down. Maybe instead you're interested in something more environmental. Maybe you want to look at the Great Barrier Reef and the correlation between the climate change and the death of the Great Barrier Reef. And so we maybe would type that in and see what sort of links we would get. So there's definitely some that are very, very recent. Reef calcifiers are adapted to episodic heat stress but vulnerable to sustained warming. That looks like one that would be a definite choice in reviewing this topic. Lots of cool things out there on the Web of Science, but also there are sources like the Centers for Disease Control. So if you go to cdc.gov, cdc.gov is going to give you a lot of very nice resources. And you can see here that they're taking on the idea of making certain that all young people are vaccinated for polio. And we know that there is some debate with respect to vaccination and that preventative means of stopping viral disease such as polio. Additionally, the World Health Organization, this is one of my very favorite websites, who.int or WHO International. And you'll notice here that one of the topics that they're taking on that's very important and trendy right now is the cholera epidemic of 500,000 in Yemen. And you can click on this and get the immediate news. So this may be a site that will be very helpful to you. In class, we are going to review some science magazines. I have one science magazine right here on my desk, and we'll review some of these for some really cool and trendy topics as well. And I'll keep these in the lab because I get them basically every other week. Now I am going to leave it in your court to come through this assignment description with every section of your poster that you make. Come back to this assignment description and make certain that you're using it as a resource. For example, this fantastic poster that we talked about their name being the microbials, Be aware, and this is really playing on a creative title, playing on words, and also it gives a very descriptive title, Resolving the Population Decline in the Honeybee and Eradicating an Associated Parasite. So it tells you a little bit about what this poster is going to be about. So here is another example. So as you're writing your method section, as you're writing your discussion section and your summary, please come back to this assignment description and make certain that you're using it to the best of its ability to help you with each and every section that you put forward. So in this assignment, I know that it is difficult because you will be working with a group of people and there will be challenges every single day. Group work, teamwork, and leadership is never easy, but it is always worth it. And remember, our reference at the beginning to active learning and building neural networks, if you sustain with all of those difficult multimodal means of learning with others, you will be building meaningful neural networks in which the learning that you're doing is actually going from your desktop to your hard drive and creating lifelong learning.